Hey guys, welcome to Pajama Let's Play. I'm Michelle, host of Pajama Let's Play, where we talk all things Kingdom Hearts. Today, I'm going to discuss past decisions made by Disney, the Marvel Universe, and why the MCU cannot affect the greater plot of Kingdom Hearts. But before we get into that, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. You can also follow me on Twitch, check out my Patreon, or leave a tip via PayPal. All of those things are in the description box down below. There will be spoilers for Kingdom Hearts, Once Upon a Time, and pretty much any of the MCU that deals with Thor, Loki, and the other Norse gods, so heads up there. Also, please hear me out until the end, because the way I present things is to build the foundation first, then I put my conclusions at the end. So please don't judge this video only by the title and thumbnail. With that said, I actually wrote this script in July, a few hours after watching the season finale of Loki, the Disney Plus series. But I've looked it over to make sure it's still accurate. Many people have been pointing out the similarities between the Loki series and some of the concepts in Kingdom Hearts, and I haven't been able to refute any of them. For example, the nexus event between the Lokis being that their hearts connected and neither had ever had a genuine and mutual connection before. Or the arc on Lamentis, or the way Kang spoke and behaved similarly to the Master of Masters. The finale had me truly terrified, because adding the MCU to Kingdom Hearts would mean two massive franchises, the MCU and Final Fantasy, which I know nothing about, would add literal weeks of watching movies and cinematics I frankly have no interest in, just to talk about the one thing I was passionate about enough to make a YouTube channel. It's a lot, and I don't have someone to edit my videos, check the scripts, aid in research, or any of the things that make for a great channel. So adding about 25 movies was overwhelming for me. Regardless of where Kingdom Hearts actually goes, to be a theorist, I feel like I need to know all of that information just to defend these videos I spend so much time producing. The fact remains that if, and that's still just an if for now, the MCU comes to Kingdom Hearts, I'm going to be bombarded with comments saying, "What about this movie?" or "But in the comics." And I can't constantly defend myself like that all the time, and being asked to make videos that would include these stories that I have zero context for. It's just too much. Once all of that settled, my husband reminded me of this show called Once Upon a Time. Every other season of it is great, and I somewhat recommend it. The shortest version of the story I can muster without too many spoilers is that the evil queen from Snow White cursed the entire kingdom to live on our Earth without magic and replaced their memories with new identities. Things happen, and all of the classic fairy tales seem to come in at one point or another. Well, the writers decided to bring Elsa, Anna, and Kristoff from Frozen there, but the story didn't change as much as the interpretations of other fairy tales did, and I wondered why. I found an interview with Georgina Haig, the actress who portrays Elsa in the show. I searched for it all over YouTube to make this video, but I only found this article written by IGN. Feel free to pause the video to read it, but at the time, this didn't really mean anything to me other than Disney's kind of a prick about creative control. But now, that's the very thing I needed to remember as I consider what this channel looks like going forward. She didn't say it exactly, but Georgina made it clear that Disney has the final say on all projects and the plots they use. They wouldn't allow Once Upon a Time to diverge too much because Frozen 2 was already being planned at that point, and they had an idea for where the story would go. Disney has also done very well to establish their multiverse, all the way up to the variation of the Pizza Planet car from Toy Story in the Loki series. If Once Upon a Time were allowed to do whatever they wish, it would have to become canon because they had already established that to be the case. If you want more information on that, feel free to check out this video by the Super Carlin brothers. But if Disney took that show that seriously, you know they extend the same level of control to Kingdom Hearts. So now let's look at Loki and the MCU. I'd like to start by saying I do not believe the Norse gods they feature in the MCU are the same as the characters in Dark Road. There seems to be an organization to the Dark Road characters that follows the actual pantheon. And we've seen how Nomura handles the various pantheons in his works already. If the MCU comes to Kingdom Hearts, I still have hope that any names that are shared are not going to affect the plot, and will be treated as separate characters. We already have Odin the Keyblade Master established in Dark Road, as opposed to the Odin in the MCU, which is a very different character. So if they do come together, they're going to have to find a way to mesh that. So now specifically to Kingdom Hearts. I know a fair bit about Norse mythology, and I enjoy researching the various pantheons, so Dark Road doesn't bother me, because I already have a good starting point for that. Final Fantasy is already connected, so I can't be upset if more of the franchise gets connected. I did the research for Fabula Nova Crystallis for my first video ever, linked here, and I will be getting a refresher when I need to. But still, I would have to watch the cinematics for however many games end up connected. I already watched The World Ends With You and other Square Enix games that felt important. So not only am I looking at getting caught up on all of that before Phase 2 begins, but now we're getting a Guardians of the Galaxy game, officially bringing Marvel to Square Enix. Notice I didn't say Kingdom Hearts, but Square made it, so it is possible. Since I believe Unreality to be a realm of video games like Verum Rex and Wreck-It Ralph, it makes sense Guardians of the Galaxy would become a world in that realm. If they come in, other Marvel games will be made and integrated. However, given what Georgina said about Disney's control, they already have plans for the MCU and each of their characters, and they cannot allow Kingdom Hearts to change the story too much. That means none of our major players can be properties of Disney, because then it would have to become canon. Notice the Arendelle world and Kingdom of Corona were basically shot for shot from the movie. Well, I believe they were still working on Frozen 2 when the Arendelle world was being programmed, so they didn't risk altering anything. We can also assume there will be a Rapunzel sequel, maybe what brings her to Arendelle as seen in the Easter egg in Frozen. So again, not wanting to risk anything, they kept it true to the movie. However, Toy Story, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, etc. are all able to deviate because those franchises are likely finished. I don't really know how Kingdom Hearts Toy Story fits in with the Pixar movies, but still. Disney has clearly switched to other themes and more representation amongst the princesses. Toy Story is safe to alter. So with all that said, if the MCU comes to Kingdom Hearts, it will be as a throwaway world just like the other Disney properties. Not the origin of any major players or events. Though they could be from Square franchises, that's a whole different subject. Going forward, I will continue to theorycraft, but if the MCU comes to Kingdom Hearts, I'm not going to cover any theories pertaining to it because, again, Disney won't allow the MCU to be altered by Kingdom Hearts. I will continue to discuss the pantheons, and I'll do my best to make it clear that I am not speaking of the gods that got fictionalized into comic book heroes, but rather the religious figures based on religiously accepted sources. If you want those kinds of theories, check out my description box below because I'm sure some of those channels that I do link will want to explore what I'm just not willing to. There are plenty of us out there that I'm confident everyone can find what they're looking for, especially in the small channels like mine that are focused on community building and speaking our minds. I've noticed that as channels grow, they become more cautious about their topics and the way they cover them, which I completely understand. So what do you think? Will the Guardians of the Galaxy come into Kingdom Hearts? How do you feel about the possibility of more Marvel worlds? Tell me all about your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitch, check out my Patreon, or leave a tip via PayPal, all of which are in the description box down below. Until next time.